Too many times we stand aside and let the water slip away, till what we put off to tomorrow has finally come today. So don't stand upon the shoreline and say you're satisfied. Choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance the tide. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Maxwell Ivy, known around the world as The Blind Blogger, and you can find me at theblindblogger.net as usual. And if you are an author, coach, speaker, podcaster wanting more exposure for your work, you need to head over to my online publicity page at theblindblogger.net, and you can hire me to do all the work of getting you booked on podcasts and radio shows so you can share your story, reach a wider audience, explain your methods, and grow your business. So would appreciate your checking me out for that. And today I have another very inspiring guest, in my opinion. Her name is Catherin Lyon, and she runs the Author's Den. She's also an author herself, and she does, in her own way, she helps authors promote themselves and get their books out into the world so they can hopefully become bestsellers. And her very raw, emotional memoir, her first book, is called Addicted to Dimes, Story of a Liar and a Cheat. And I messed up the title, but she'll correct me here in a little bit when I tell her it's her turn to talk. She has recovered from a gambling addiction, and she is rapidly becoming one of the powerful voices in the addiction arena, helping to bring people hope and inspire them to take action and to hopefully live a much more productive life in the future. And before I tell her to come on in here, I want to mention one other thing to y'all. Her laptop broke in the last few days, and instead of postponing this until she could do it in video, she said, Max, let's just go ahead and do this thing. So I'm going to come in on the phone. For those of you who are watching this video or watching it on Facebook later, I just wanted y'all to know why it is that there's just me on the screen. But I'm telling you, y'all are really going to enjoy this talk with Catherin, and I know you're going to want to go over to her website, which is Catherin Lyon, addictedtodimes.wordpress.com. So hi, Catherin. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, Max. Very, very happy to be here and to be able to chat with you today and all your listeners.
Well, I appreciate that, and hopefully after this interview, there'll be even more people that hear about your story and that become regular listeners to the show. So why don't we start out with you telling people exactly what your story is and what this book is about and how you hope to help other people.
Sure. Well, on the recovery side, I've been maintaining recovery now for 11 and a half years from gambling addiction and a dash of alcohol abuse, but the gambling addiction was what my poison was. And when I got into recovery, luckily, through God's grace, 2 failed suicide attempts. I just decided my book wasn't really written for a book. I read an article about a woman at a casino that I had been many, many times. She committed suicide in the hotel room. And when I read that article in our paper first, there's so much stigma still around this particular addiction. It's, I feel, considered still too silent, and it is an underground addiction. People don't want to talk about it, and that's why I advocate. I'm going to change the conversation and put it in the spotlight where it needs to be, especially now that legislation was passed for legalized online sports betting. It's now reaching our children, our college-age kids, and it's not just the addict, it's the family. It is a family disease. And very often I hear people tell me all the time, oh, my grandmother has a gambling problem, my mom has a gambling problem. We need to start talking about this addiction. Right now, it seems it's being outshined by the opioid addiction, but currently right now, gambling addiction, and anybody can Google this, is the #1 addiction that is claiming lives by suicide right now. And that is a really big deal. And we need to start having the conversation. The conversation needs to be, we need to start talking to our latter teen age, our college kids when they go off to college. But my book, actually, after reading the article in the paper, it just lit a fire in me. I had to see between the lines of paper, black and white, what gambling addiction had taken from me. And so I just started writing. It just came pouring out for a whole year. I wrote it in about 6.5 notebooks, and really God intervention took it over from there. Had a friend who worked for our newspaper. She needed a college project, so she edited it for me, and put it in a book manuscript. And then she sent the first 60 pages to a publisher friend of hers. And he said, Catherin, we need to publish this. This is going to help a lot of people. It needs to be out in the world, and that's how my book came to be. It's called Addicted to Dimes, Confessions of a Liar and a Cheat. And it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many online bookstores. You can find it.
Right. Now, when I read that title and I read your bio, and you mentioned that in there that gambling is not something just for the rich and the famous, and then I think about your title. I wonder if you could tell us, when you got started, were you possibly playing the penny and dime slot machines in the casino? Where did you get started with your addiction?
Mine actually started. I live currently in right outside Phoenix, Arizona, but I had lived in Southern Oregon for 25 years, from Southern California. It's where I met and married my husband. And what happened was they introduced, to begin with, through the Oregon lottery. Now, I know all states all have different lotteries, but in Oregon, they introduced video poker machines. And then later on, they added like slot style games to these video poker machines. And you can go anywhere. They're in all different restaurants, like in their lounge area. They're at all the bars, taverns, they're everywhere. And that's really how I got hooked. Prior to that, I don't come from a family background of, gambling or, we were a dysfunctional family, and I share a lot of that in my book, but I actually started using gambling for the wrong reasons. And I do share some of the underlying issues. I'm a childhood sex abuse survivor, and my mother was very heavy-handed and verbally abusive. Even I love her to death, but it's just how she was raised. When two people come together and they have children, and like my mother used to tell me for years, we don't come with a rule book when we're born. So, they're going to raise their children what they see, how they were raised and that. And, some of it was a little, as in today's society, it could be considered child abuse. So borderline. But, so my gambling actually just really started. I was a regular person. I would, gamble every now and then, maybe a trip to Reno with my girlfriends on Mother's Day, or, it wasn't like I went all the time. There was an Indian casino about 40 miles from my home north. And, my husband and I would go, I don't know, maybe every 3-4 months, but I didn't come from a background of addicted gamblers or any of that. And I think what happened was, around when I turned 30, a lot of those old haunting feelings were coming back from my child abuse and sex abuse. And, eventually, if you don't address them in a healthy manner and process it, it's going to come back. It will come back. And I just happened to use gambling as my zone out, numb out. I didn't want to feel the pain. I didn't want to remember it. And at that point, I was obviously undiagnosed. I'm dually diagnosed, meaning I maintain life in recovery. but I also have mental health challenges. So my first suicide attempt and very bad gambling binge, I tried to commit suicide, and with cutting my wrists and that. And it was because I just didn't want to feel anything anymore. And so, you know, I was in a very bad way, but the gambling is what actually brought out the undiagnosed mental illness. I was suffering from severe depression, believe it or not, even though I was suffering from high mania, PTSD. I was a wreck. I was a mess. Mm. And so I share all that in the book and that. So, you know, I think, you know, I'm grateful that I know it sounds crazy, but I've learned a lot of, you know, life lessons and all that from a very bad experience. But it did happen to get me properly diagnosed with my mental health. And, you know, today I'm still on medications. I managed and it, you know, that's another thing that makes it even more difficult for people who do have addiction problems, is that they, you know, many do, and we're finding a rise in this, that many are duly diagnosed. So it makes it a bit tougher, you know, to maintain recovery, and, you know, have mental health challenges. But the stigma around all those topics needs to be broken, you know, and my advocacy is it's got to stop here. It has to stop here. It's just like generational addiction. You know, when children are raised in a home that they see their parents, look, we're little children, we're like little sponges, we take all that in. And yeah, some people aren't as strong as other people, so it may affect us later in our adulthood. And that's exactly what happened to me. It just happened that gambling fit the bill for me. I didn't have to put a needle in my arm, I didn't have to pop a pill, didn't have to smoke anything, but I got the same euphoric high and rush as a drug addict or an alcoholic with gambling. And I was doing it all with manipulating, you know, your adrenaline, your endorphins, your everything. And so that's one of the important things of my book. I tried to share that through the pages of my book. I want people to be informed and educated about this addiction, because just about everybody in their family, somebody in their family has a gambling problem, whether they're addicted or it starts out as a problem gambler. They start out, as a problem gambler. And it's like, gambling is like any other addiction. It's a slow progressive disease. And so, you know, your bets become higher, the money you take becomes higher. Before you know it, the money runs out. And that's why I say I'm not rich, poor, you know, I'm just a regular person. But what happens is that list of things that you will do. Oh, I've pawned things of value, you know, just everything. You'll find the money. And eventually you may even commit a crime. And I did that too. Unfortunately, I wasn't gambling at the time. It was from financial pressure. But, you know, and I walked that road, had to go through court process and everything. Ironically enough, I spent 20 plus years in banking was my career prior, and then in collection industry for about 3 years. So I know right from wrong, but that the disease, when you're active, it will make you do anything, and crime can come with it. You know, luckily I had a very understanding judge, took the time to look at my background. I had never committed a crime prior or after. You know, did everything that was expected of me through the court process and did my community service and paid for everything. But I still did it because that diseased thinking, I grabbed that quick fix to make things financially better than using the tools and skills that I had learned in treatment and, you know, through my recovery work, I still do today.
Okay.
But I tell, go ahead.
Okay. I am talking with Catherin Lyon of the Author's Den, and you can find her at Catherin Lyon, addictedtodimes.wordpress.com. And I mentioned something to you before we started this that I really want to talk to you about, because I think it's probably a bigger problem than we know about, and that is, do you think that many authors, podcasters, speakers, let's say aspiring ones, do you think that there's a certain element of addiction in a lot of these people in what they're willing to do to put themselves through to become a successful author or radio show host or whatever that goal may be? What do you think?
Well, I think it really depends on what the motives are. What are the motives to be getting out there? Like I understand, as we've worked together for a long time, on and off, and I help, you know, promote when you have, you know, exciting things going on. You know, as far as addiction, where is the heart in it? That's where I come from. What are your motives? Is it egoism? Is it, you know, status? Is it no? I'm pretty clear that your motives, you know, you have a wonderful show. You help so many people, inspire them and motivate them through more of a self-help channel. And we need that in today's society. And so it's difficult. What happens is, I'll speak on the, say, promoting literary consulting side is, we need to get out there in mainstream. Yes, it's important to, you know, share throughout social media and that, because yeah, there are listeners, there's readers, there's, you know, that's where they go, is online. But you also need to try and crack into mainstream media. And there is some, you know, good tips on how to do that. You know, just sending out a press release about what you're doing and what you're wanting to accomplish. There's nothing wrong with that. And there are sites out there that you can use, and they give you 2, 3, 5 press releases a month. And they're very easy. You can go to a Word doc template. They'll show you how to write it up and send some press releases, or make a little press sheet, you know, and share your links and where your podcast is, or where, you know, where your show is, and that. I do feel mainstream media does help, but it's difficult to know. I mean, you know, you have to ask the client, what are your motives and what are your goals? What do you want the end result? Well, we'd love to see Max on a mainstream radio show, not no podcast, because all the information you share and what you do is so important.
Yeah, what I'm talking about are people who have been evicted from their homes. Their credit cards are maxed out.
Right.
They don't have good relationships with people around them because their entire focus is making their book or their next book a bestseller. That's what I was trying to get at as far as addiction among writers and other creative people.
Well, you know, it's interesting, because one of the first things I learned as I began starting to write more is it's your tone. What is your writing style like? Are you writing and people are, you know, of course we can't make everyone happy, and everybody is going to read things and perceive them differently, of course, from one person to another. But with your writing style and how you are presenting yourself is really important. Are they reading it and thinking, this guy just wants, you know, just to get famous and, you know, build his likes on his Facebook page and that? It's important how you're writing and the text of what you're using while you're promoting is very important, because that's going to set the tone for the people who are out there reading. I'll give you a good example. I see people on Facebook or on LinkedIn is another very good website to be on as a professional. but they use their photos, and then it's got, you know, seen on Fox News and MSNBC. People don't want to see that.
Well, mine doesn't say that because I've never been on those shows, but if I had, it would.
Right, but you have to be careful the way you are presenting. You know, some people get turned off by it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess it would be who is your audience? That's another thing.
I think that would be a good place for us to go next. In that, okay, y'all, we have the advantage of the fact that Catherin is very skilled and successful in promoting other authors. So, you know, let's talk about the whole process from the first time you meet with an author to figuring out what their book and their story is. What are some of the things that you do or you encourage them to do that maybe the average person wouldn't think of?
Well, when I began my consulting and book marketing for authors, I specifically was doing it through social media and that. And so the first thing I do is I research, you know, how many books do they have? What type of genre are they? I look at the book covers. I research to see where they are on social media, because I'm a little different than other like book promotion sites out there or consulting. I do everything. So if they're not even on social media yet, or only have maybe a Facebook and nothing else, the first thing I do is I consult with them and let them know that, you know, we need to get all their social media, and I offer that in my plans. And I set them all up. What we do is I set up an email, and we both can use it so that person can see everything I'm doing for them. And that way we both can get in and out. That way I don't have to bother them all the time to verify this or verify that. But I do a lot of research. Except
for those times when Facebook says, if you don't, this strange person is signing into your account.
Yeah, well, that's an easy fix. What you can do, they can go in and add the different locations. So like if your main location, you can add another one and that. But but what I do is I do all my research, see how many books they have, what type of genres, what they have out there. I Google and see, you know, where they've been, have they done interviews and things like that. So I can get a good feel of what they're really needing and that. And then I do have services. I've been doing this for over 6 years. So I've made many friends with other book promoting sites, places that have large readerships, you know, and that, and also, you know, some friends that are in public relations. They give me advice and tips, you know, to get more out in mainstream. So then we look and see, you know, I tell them, you know, do an action plan for them, suggest this is what you need to success, you know, get that book exposure out there. Of course, our main goals is to gain sales and reviews and that. And, you know, a lot of that is based on not just where you're marketing your books, but, you know, you have to take into consideration, is it a good book? Is it well edited? Does it have already some good reviews? I don't just take anybody, because sometimes there are now I'm always up for a challenge, and I don't like the word no. So, you know, some of the people, like, you know, people who do addiction recovery books like mine, you know, I have no problem helping them and promoting them as well, because it's a tough nut to crack, you know. You have to be genre specific. So I do work with other sites and that are affordable, but get the exposure out there. I also let the authors know if they have a brand new book coming. Then the first thing you need to do is a service where you can do a free read and review, and like NetGalley or Booksprout, and that's more in the UK. And that way you're off, off to the races, because once the book is, do a pre-order. Instead of just waiting until the book's ready and it's going to be live, why not take a month or so prior, build up the excitement, and do a pre-order for the book and do an early read in exchange for reviews. The book sites keep track of it all. It's very inexpensive, but then once the book is released, you got reviews right off the bat. And, Amazon really, people who go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble and that, wherever they buy the books, most of it is Amazon and Amazon Kindle. That's your reviews are going to be there already, and it pumps up your ranking for your ebook or your paperback, and you're ready to roll. And then you hire me, and we keep the momentum going. And then you just kind of build through there. But I will set up all their social media accounts where they need to be. And I keep a master list of all the places they're going to be. So when I'm done with all of that side, they're going to know every place and every link they need, to go visit and help promote too. Most of my authors are very proactive. They do a little promoting too. But I have also writers who, they don't have the time. They may be with a publisher who is on a, deadline. So they hire me and I do all the promoting for them so they can continue to write.
Right. Well, you mentioned two things I wanted to go back to. One is you said that you do represent other authors of books about addiction. And that got me to thinking about how recently I posted about my service of getting people booked on podcasts and radio shows. And you shared those posts on your social media networks. And I remember thinking, and I actually said on Twitter that, it's amazing when you run across somebody who has an abundance mindset, who isn't afraid to promote somebody whose services may be similar or even in competition with them, because they just aren't really worried about they aren't really worried about it. They must feel like there's enough writers out there, there's enough work to go around that, I was just happy to see it didn't bother you to share somebody else's post that's in kind of the same space you are.
Yeah, and I'm part of when I began, because to me, my writing and book promoting all came, I call them my blessings from, maintaining recovery. All of this came from maintaining recovery, everything that I had done with my book. And believe it or not, I have some college credits in some business management, but I have never done any marketing. Now I do them now because there's a lot of book sites and publishers that offer them, at no cost, and that I take advantage of all the things that I can. And I'm a big person that we can get someone's book out there without spending loads of money. But I want authors to understand you have to set up a marketing budget. I'd rather see an author learn how to self-publish their books and keep the royalty money in their pocket and use the money to invest in themselves and promote the heck out of their books and their brand as an author and writer. That would be my dream client. And because I've researched, there's so many wonderful book sites. I don't set up, I know this is going to make people cringe, but I don't even have an email list that I do or a newsletter and that, because a lot of the book sites that I do add my clients to, and most of them are free, and they give you a free author interview as well, along with, they may want you to pay $10 to do a featured book ad. We can do that.
Those are always premiums, and they're generally options, not necessities.
And
in most cases, when you do that free interview, you get on their mailing list, and some of those emails are going to be about classes that'll be, additional charges or free with, certain other things.
Right.
But usually there's a lot of advertising in that email list that you get on, but you're getting free exposure in exchange for it. And
exactly.
And as we both know, that's what the delete key and the unsubscribe buttons are for.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you, I've taken some pretty good lately. A few on with the Amazon classes, with the Amazon changes, and the algorithm is different now, which means how they rank your ebooks and your paperbacks, things like that, and they were all free. And that, and you know, some of it is, you know, maybe from publishers or whatever, and they're just trying to help authors as well. You know, there's the community feeling among book promoters, marketers, and that. There's so many authors out there that are needing the help, and they don't know, you know, that there are people like us that are out there. You know, I love helping other people and getting back to, you know, maintaining my recovery. When I started doing my book marketing and literary services, one of the things I said was, you know what, I'm putting the same passion into that and helping authors as I do when I'm helping others, you know, in recovery, or reaching out to recover, because you know what, it comes back to you tenfold. It really does. And I have, you know, many friends that they'll Facebook me and say, do you mind sharing my book link or whatever? No, I don't mind, because you know what? Someone else may see that, another author, and they come and say, hey, what do you offer? And which, you know how it works.
Just this morning, I shared a friend's post, Hannah Edwards, who had me on her podcast. I shared her post for a new mastermind group she's working on for online business owners. And she sent me the best direct message because one of my friends subscribed to her thing in the first week. And she's like, so, you know, I agree with you. That stuff, when you do these things for other people without thinking about what the return is going to be,
that's right.
There are those great moments that will come from it. And people remember that sort of stuff. It really plays in heavily into that get to know, like, trust, buy equation that everybody's chasing. And people remember it when you do stuff for other people without asking or expecting anything in return.
And they understand then that they give you a little trust, and they know you're real. You know, when you're doing an online business, which mine really is all online, you know, I mean, it takes a big amount of trust to be able to, you know, hire someone and know they're not going to rip you off because there are so many scams out there, you know, and so it does. Yeah, it does. And so,
and as a blind computer user, it's even harder because a lot of those sites, you can only tell that they're sketchy by the visual evaluation of their website and their links. You know, a lot of that stuff.
Yes. You're exactly right.
A lot of people that may sound perfectly. I've been really blessed. I have yet to be. On the Midway Marketplace side, I've been ripped off 2 or 3 times by clients. But on the blind blogger side, I have been very blessed that I have yet to. Thank goodness, I have yet to run into anybody who's taken advantage of me in my efforts to promote the blind blogger and the stuff I do. But back to the other thing I wanted to remember to mention. Was you also talked about making friends and collaborating with other people in the public relations and marketing arena. And I think that's another thing that a lot of people are afraid to do and overlook doing. And I just want you to talk a little bit about that for a minute.
Well, it is a very overlooked, because building your network and you know, and friends based. You know, a great place that I love is LinkedIn. I would say about 60% of the authors that hire me actually come from LinkedIn. Now, I know that, you know, because it is more a professional site and that, I try to keep my professional side still casual, because I want to be approachable. I want people to know I'm not just this big, you know, which I'm not. I'm a little tiny one woman show that has grown to a big literary service, but that's okay because I give exceptional client service. When people, the authors hire me, writers hire me, you know what? They know that they can call me anytime and I'm going to answer that phone personally.
Yes. Right.
You know, and I feel that makes a big difference. But yeah, but LinkedIn, I would say about 60% of my business comes from LinkedIn. It's a great site. You don't have to pay to be premium. I have worked very hard to build my clientele there and my friends and networking community. I research every single person. One thing that I can tell you with all my social media accounts, I have worked tirelessly to make sure that they are organic, real people, real readers, real authors, and that is important.
Well, I know that mine aren't up to that standard. I actually joked with a woman yesterday who was posting online about some services, some small services she could do for people to pay the bills while she's growing her real business. And I said, you know, I have about once a month, I think, man, I would pay somebody just to go through my social media accounts and get rid of all the people who don't need to be there. Yep. You know, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like a big deal, and it probably wouldn't be a big fee, but how many other people do you think they're out there who are like, I know I've got a bunch of people in my Facebook and my LinkedIn and my Twitter that are no good, you know, scoundrels, or
right.
that will never help me move my goal forward.
They're not networking. Or I love engagement and interaction. That is what I'm all about, you know. And you have to be when you're book marketing or helping an author build their brand and their social media and all that. I do all of that. You know, most book sites or, you know, literary, they don't do all that. You know, you have to hire an expensive PR firm to do that. And I don't, because I've actually self-taught and done all the research to find a lot of the places and the friends that I have, and we help each other. And, you know, and it is possible to get your books out there. I have one author right now. She's a mystery writer. She just went to Tennessee. She was a finalist for one of her mysteries. Actually,
there's a big writers conference in Tennessee this time of year, right?
Yeah, right. But she was a finalist. You might want to mention
the name of the conference for those who don't follow the whole writing thing as closely as we do.
Right. It's called Killer Nashville. They have a great Facebook group for anyone who writes mysteries, thrillers, suspense. And it doesn't have to be fiction. It can be nonfiction, but they really help authors. And I just happened to, we entered her in one of their awards. It's called the Falchion Award. And she did become a finalist. She went Saturday night. She didn't win, but it's the next step to, she just had a beautiful write-up in the main AJC, Atlanta, Georgia newspaper, front page. They did a great job. She's got another one coming out. These are the kinds of things that will happen for authors, you know, and me and Kim have been working together for a couple of years. And, you know, there are ways to get that exposure. And that I work with a lot of different sites that, you know, it might cost a little money to do, but, you know, she's got another lifestyle magazine of Atlanta, Georgia, in October that's going to do a beautiful thing on her as an author and her books, and some other things coming up. You can get there. Is she
from Atlanta?
I'm sorry, tell me that. Oh, her name is
Atlanta?
Kim Carter Mystery.
Is she from Atlanta?
Yes, she's actually right outside Atlanta, Atlanta, Georgia.
The reason I was asking is that a lot of people have trouble getting media exposure because they don't focus enough on the local media, including some of the small papers to begin with.
You have to. That's how we got her rolling, you know. She had a friend that owns, it's a beautiful place. If people live in Atlanta, Georgia, You got to stop by the Atlanta Water Gardens. Her publisher, Kelly Keelan owns that, and Raven South Publishing. Sweet guy, just wonderful. And he carries her books there. And but yeah, it's called, you can connect with her, Kim Carter Mysteries. If you're a mystery and thriller reader, check her out on Amazon. Kim Carter, her books are fantastic. She's got 2 that are award winners. But you know what? We've been working at this for 2 years, and now it's finally coming. You know, the blooms are finally opening.
Yeah,
so
yeah. It's kind of like now. Somebody once told me that if you're going to plant asparagus, it takes 2 years. You know, and that image just came into my mind when you said you've been working with her for 2 years. You know,
yep.
And there's an old saying among musicians that it takes 10 years to become an overnight sensation. That's a very common saying among musicians and singers. That it takes 10 years to become an overnight sensation. So,
I don't know much about the musician side.
Yeah.
But with authors, I always tell them, don't accept no, never give up. And it takes time. It really does. And, you know, I've had a lot of authors who have just, you know, they just did one book and it came out and they get discouraged. Gosh, why isn't I getting reviews and sales? Blah, blah. Well, first off, they're not spending any money, a little bit of money to promote. For one, if you don't market your books, how are readers going to know they're out there? They won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as far as becoming a popular, you know, author, you know, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. My book was originally the paperback released in on my 50th birthday, believe it or not, in November in 2012. Or excuse me. Yeah, 2012. And it took me at least a good solid year of promoting anywhere that I could get it, you know. And within the year is when, and then I started writing articles for addiction recovery publications. Now I write paid articles.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I think that's where I've messed up myself personally, is that it's only been in the last, say, 6 months that I have really started reaching out to organizations tied to blindness and other people with disabilities. And, you know, it was always like I never really focused on that particular audience because my message is generally more effective with the sighted folk than with the blind. But,
right.
But, you know, it's a whole area where I could have been getting exposure for me and my brand, and I was basically ignoring it, you know.
And that would have been the first thing I would tell you, because they're going to be more apt to support someone like that, to support you in doing that. You know, always connect with your specific genre or area of what, like me, addiction recovery, you know. I had to, you know, be very specific, and, you know, I just started submitting, you know, articles about addiction, you know, gambling addiction and recovery, and, you know, sending them out free and everything. It takes a while, but you got to build up that network, you know, and then it will start happening. It's the same with social media. I did it through social media because way back then I didn't really know how to tap into, you know, mainstream media and that. Yeah. Now I do, you know, I send press releases for everything and that, but, you know, that's how I built it up. And people know me as not only the, you know, the book marketer and the writer and that, but they also know me throughout the addiction recovery. I'm now getting, you know, like, one thing I do with the mental health side, and that's another reason why I called on the phone, I do still suffer a little bit with agoraphobia. And so I don't get out as much to be able to do a lot of speaking engagements or flying and that, because, you know, I'm still working with it with my therapist.
Take the train.
Yeah, right. And that I was asked, I need to start doing more of that, you know, and part of being able to break through that fear is to just do it, you know, and that.
Yeah. Now you're into my wheelhouse, which is, you know, is taking those actions every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just doing it. I think one of my real problems is I need to get better at saying no and and passing on things, because I too easily say yes. But people say it's because they don't think that I'm scared of nothing. And
I wouldn't have thought of that of you either.
Yeah, so I mean, I very rarely say no. I mean, I've got like 3 things on my, you know, I have no plans to bungee jump, skydive, or mountain climb. I'm not going to whitewater raft or swim with sharks. So now my list is 5 things on it.
Well, now, wait a minute. Now, you can river raft. And the only reason why I say it is, come on now, I came from Southern Oregon.
I didn't say I couldn't. I said I didn't want to.
You don't want to, because you can get a guide. You can hire a guide. They'll take you down, and you just sit there and do nothing.
You know, shoot, as far as that goes, one of my future guests for my show is a guy who just rafted the Grand Canyon, totally blind without a guide. So, I mean, and then somehow they made it all work. And you know what I keep asking myself? And when I say this, you tell me if you don't agree with me. When I say this, okay, about this guy, Derrek Lee here, he's a famous adventurer, blind adventurer. When I say this about him, tell me if you don't agree with me. How does a guy with this great of a story, how come he is not on every television morning show, interview show, news show in America? How is that not happening? Because
nobody knows about him. And they don't know that he's done it.
And I've tried to tell him and his people that, but you know, they put on these no barriers events in Colorado where they teach other people with disabilities to go climbing.
Right.
He's doing a summit in New York next month. He does a lot of stuff, but I agree with you. I don't think they are promoting their stuff, and I've tried to get hired. So far, I haven't had any luck. Maybe I should pitch you to them, and you could just cut me. You could just charge them a big ass fee and cut me a check every.
Well, hey, I can do that. I mean, may not be in my nature, but I think I could do it.
Well, but
somebody needs to be letting news stations and that know what's going on.
Yes, and he has a traditional publisher, which is another thing me and you both know from ourselves and other authors. There are lots of traditional publishers that will publish your book but won't do jack to get it promoted.
And you know what? That is how my business started. Seriously. That was the number one thing besides wanting to help other authors was I was heartbroken because I would read story after story after story that they spent thousands of dollars to publish their book, and the publishers were promising, we'll market your book and do this and do that. They were lucky to get a press release, and that was it. And I'm thinking they're getting ripped off.
Yeah.
You know, and shame on publishers who do that. I'm sorry, but I'm putting it out there. You know, don't promise, you know, they do everything, you know, we'll market the book, we'll pay for this. They're going to expect you to sell so many units and books before they spend their money to promote your book.
Yeah, that is so true.
Know?
And most publishing companies, they actually base their decision on whether or not to sign you on how big of a platform you already have and how willing and able you are to sell books for them, not the other way around.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I'm working on a writing project right now, and I can tell you I am one step ahead because I'm currently writing with a former NFL pro who had part of his wreckage was addiction recovery. His name is Vance Johnson. We're writing his memoir. We don't have a working title yet. It might start with Mile High because he played for Denver, but that's what we're doing.
I don't think that title will work with you because
no, but there's going to be a subtitle.
But his addiction is prescription drugs, and Colorado has become known for marijuana addiction.
Actually, no, he was an alcoholic.
He's alcoholic, but still, Colorado has become the face of the marijuana.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, yeah.
So
that's why I say we don't really have a working title yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really good at pointing things out like that. I'm not all that great at pointing them out to myself, but I notice stuff like that with other. But that every coach you talk to will tell you the same thing. That
yeah.
That he was with other people than we do with ourselves. But yeah, you were telling me about him before we got started. That he was a former star for the Broncos.
Yep, we're writing his memoir right now. He'll be flying in later next month, and we'll be putting the finishing touches on it so we can get it to an editor. Hope to be publishing hopefully by mid to late fall, but that's what we're going to do. My action plan, of course, I'll be doing all the promoting, and we are going to self-publish first.
Yeah.
Recoup all the money that he's paid me to write and all the stuff we're going to do to promote it. Let's recoup some of that money first, and then we're going to shop for a contract, a publisher.
And when y'all shop are y'all going to shop for a publisher, or let me throw this out there.
We're hoping that we'll get
for an agent that can get you in front of a movie producer.
Well, I don't know. Now, he did do a couple stints on Oprah already. We're hoping right now he is doing some work with NFL Films. They're doing a documentary right now, and they've been kind of following him around and that. And they do have a publishing side of
that's true. That's something that people need to pay more attention to. That is a lot of the TV networks, like Hallmark now does it. NFL Films does it. A lot of these companies that do these documentaries are
also doing publishing.
Publishing, yes.
Yep. So we're kind of hoping, but we decided we're going to sell because he's a little higher profile. We're going to do a pre-order for the book. And get the reviews, so that when it does release, then we've got some right out the gate, and then hopefully we'll be having to sift through contracts, offers.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're past the usual amount of time I allot for my interview, but I have to ask this question because I think it applies to a lot of people in business for themselves. How does it feel to be at this point where you have what should be your first big-time famous or semi-famous client, the kind of project that really could put your business on the map and allow you to help more people and or possibly charge more fees?
That's a really good question, and I haven't thought, believe it or not, I have not thought that far ahead. I mean, I know that the book, it's going to be, will help my book, but I also will, I'm almost done with my second book, the follow-up to Addicted to Dimes. But I really haven't thought that far ahead. I'm, because I maintain recovery, I am a one day at a time kind of person.
Yeah.
And I just, Jesus has the wheel. It's really true. And whatever will happen will happen. I probably will have to then get my own office or something. I guess. I don't know. Seriously, I really haven't thought of that ahead.
And how long did you tell me that you started doing the book promotion 6 years ago, or you started writing 6 years ago?
No. My book promoting and consulting, I've been doing for actually about 6.5 years. And then my book was actually written in most of 2010 and part of 2011. And then I sat on it for a while because I was nervous, because I disclose a lot of family secrets to be able to let people have that insight of what, you know, how the gambling addiction transpired. And of course, you know, there's some things that happened in my family that tore our family apart. And that, so, you know, I was a little nervous, but then I got to thinking, you know what, the book is not about them. It is how it affected me. So they can say whatever they want. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, you know, my mom's passed already and I was able to make amends with her, but it's about me and not me. It's actually about helping others, give them the insight to see how addiction tears a family apart, and also, you know, my life and that. So I knew there was going to be some backlash, but that's why it didn't actually release until late November of 2012, because I had to be coaxed a little, you know, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to be, I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm not hiding. I am a very open and transparent person, always have been. And I told the publisher, let's do it. Let's just get it. Let's get this out there because, you know, you outweigh how many, I will never know how many maybe lives it may save, or people reaching out and will go into recovery and get treatment for gambling addiction. I will never know. I leave that to God. You know, that's he's the miracle God. He's the miracle man. So, but that outweighed whatever backlash was going to come, because I know what everything that I wrote is the truth. And I'm at peace with that. So I'll leave it there.
All right. Yeah. I just want to point out one thing to the people watching this. Did y'all catch what she said and what I was trying to get at? Because I wanted to make sure I had my facts straight. She's been doing this for 6 years, and here she has a client who finally has the potential to be that kind of person who proves that what you've been doing all this time has worked. That, you know, this person is going to put your business on the map. But we're talking 6, and since this book isn't out yet, 6, 7 years down the road before this is happening for her. And, you know, with Kat, I know that you work hard on this every day. And I wanted to come back to that particular point, because I know a lot of people, they get frustrated when they're 6 months or a year into something and they still haven't succeeded under the terms that most people associate with success. And they quit altogether, or they slack off for a while, or they beat themselves up emotionally during these times. And so I think it's really important to point it out to people when, you know, you see somebody that's had to work years to get to this point, but, you know, you're finally starting to get there.
Yes. And it does. You know, that's always the first thing, especially with authors. I always tell them, you know, don't give up. There are going to be frustrated times, but, you know, you've got to market your books and yourself and your brand, and it doesn't happen overnight. It really doesn't. And so you have to decide how much, you know, are you going to invest in yourself and help, you know, make those dreams come true, because they will come true. It just takes time, and don't get discouraged.
Well, I think that's a good place for us to end. I've been having a great conversation with Catherin Lyon of Catherin Lyon, which is spelled Lyon, addictedtodimes.wordpress.com. And I will put that link when I upload the video, because I'm not even sure I could type it into the server correctly. And I appreciate you coming on and talking with me today, and I'm looking forward to the comments we get. And hopefully this video will help a lot of people, both authors and those people continuing to struggle with their addictions.
I really hope it does. And thank you so much for giving me the platform and the opportunity to share.
Well, I appreciate having a good conversation, a good interview, and I do my best to help people like you share your stories. And, you know, hopefully this will be another time when people will look at Kat and me and they'll go, if they can do it, then what's my excuse?
I agree.
Okay, so another great interview is over, and it seems like time went by ridiculously fast. And who knows, maybe one of these days I'm going to get me an editor, because it seems like the best parts of my show always happen in the second 30 minutes. So I'm really glad that we got to spend some time with Catherin today. And if I were going to say my takeaways are, we have to promote our books if we want people to find out about them, buy them, and have their lives changed by them. We have to spend money, no matter how much that may be difficult for some of us to do. There are free and low-cost options, but eventually we all have to spend some money to promote our books, movies, albums, whatever that particular project or passion in our lives may be. And also, I'm very impressed that Catherin includes the importance of God and prayer in her continuing process here. I know that's important to most anybody that's struggling with an addiction, but it's still important to see her mention it so openly and so freely. A lot of people might not do that, even if they did believe it was an important part of their recovery and their continued happy life. So those are some of the things that I have taken from my time with Catherin. I'll be interested to see what y'all think about it. If you want to find out more about her, you can go to Catherin Lyon, addictedtodimes.wordpress.com. As always, you can find out more about me at theblindblogger.net. And that's where you can purchase my books, including my latest book, The Blind Blogger's New York City Adventures, How You Can Make Your Dreams Come True. I keep wanting to say 2 at the end of that, and maybe I should have put 2 on the book title. Yeah. But the point is, you can buy my books over there, and I look forward to hearing from y'all again soon. I do know you have lots of demands on your time, so I appreciate you spending some of it with me. Until next time, thank you, God bless you, and take care out there. And there's bound to be rough waters, and I know I'll take some falls. But with the good Lord as my captain, I can make it through them all. I will sail my vessel until the river runs dry. Like a bird upon the wind, these waters are my sky. I'll never reach my destination if I never try. So I will sail my vessel until the river runs dry.